If you want to come and ask a question for any of our esteemed guests, just come up round here. There's a mic. Don't be scared.
Oh boy.
Here we go. Go on, Blake.
I tried to get him on the pod.
Hey, guys. How are you thinking about jurisdictional risk? So, Harry, how is it to be a miner in the United States right now, looking at 5-year plan versus another country?
It's really tricky, first and foremost. So, number one is that there's sort of federal risk and there's country jurisdictional considerations. You know, the next is like state by state, region by region. You know, New York is not Texas, is not Tennessee, is not Washington. So, you know, there's some significant kind of balkanization within our environment as well. I think at the end of the day, the most important thing for us to do is build the most productive business we know how. And right now, that means publicly listing on US exchanges to the best of our ability and trying to sign power contracts in the country that has the best property rights in the world.
Fair answer.
I think that's great.
All right. Okay. So no one knows my name. All right. So I had a question for Harry and Troy. In terms of just Bitcoin mining and generation, where do you see things going? Perhaps in terms of nuclear and other alternatives. Harry, there you go. Right? Ready?
Little nuke meat for me.
Yeah.
We love the isotope. We think that nuclear power is just like a similarly, you know, societally unlocking technology, similar to hard money. I think it's like a total travesty how we've stunted that industry over the last 60 years, and we've basically done so on the back of you know, fear and disinformation. But the facts of nuclear generation bear themselves out all over. Are they the perfect solution in every power market? Of course not. But I would expect, you know, massively more nuclear generation to exist 50 years from now if we win.
Yeah, I have a less informed take that matches that matches Harry's. I've been weighing into this nuclear, anti-nuclear debates within the energy space, and I got to say, it is like among the most intense fights I have ever witnessed. People are ready to like go to the mat on this question, and it's difficult to get to the bottom of it. I'm glad we have Bitcoin as a way of deciding this contest that does not involve language, but involves sats and electrons.
This is a weird question. What do you think about consumer mining embedded in solar systems so they can use the excess credits that are wasted now?
Can I try this one? So, yeah, I'm hopeful about this application. It depends on some factors. It depends on, first of all, CapEx being low enough, right? Because you have competing spots for those miners that have high uptime. I mean, here's what we have. Miners all want high uptime and low cost. And there are some sources that'll give you both. The question is, how much of that is there in the world that gives you super cheap power that is always up? Miners will obviously take that before they go to solar setups that are not 24/7. And then the question is, which do you give up? Do you give up some uptime and go with excess solar where your power is free, but you have limited uptime? Or do you pay more and stay up all the time? And that's going to be a question that you have to model out with your CapEx and how much it's depreciating, right? So in the long term, I think absolutely. Think about it. In the long term, the cost of mining is going to go to the cost of producing those ASICs, and that's only going to go down. And in the long term, the margins are going to be super tight in mining as we find cheaper and cheaper and cheaper power. And we're going to have older equipment sitting around as we age out of it. And the improvement in ASICs is also going to decrease, I think. I don't know if Blake's laughing at me, so maybe I'm wrong. But in time, I think you're going to have cheap chips sitting around waiting for excess power wherever it exists, and that's going to include like all the solar power, for instance, that's DC that never makes it to AC even, that's just trapped behind there. We'll probably find a way to get that into ASICs without ever going through an AC conversion and back to DC, right? When you see how much clipped power there is, it's absolutely stunning, especially given that solar, whether you like it or not, is going to explode. We're going to have loads of wasted energy of all kinds in the system because of its intermittency. And then you'd be a fool not to mine with it because it's going to be free. But maybe not right now.
My name's Troy. I'm just a philosopher. I don't know anything technical about anything.
Hello, Chester from All Four. We do environmental consulting. Really appreciated your perspective last year on the ESG panel in the mining stage. Talk to me about how ESG is a bit of a curse word, I know, but a lot of publicly traded companies are going to be doing some reporting. Talk about how mining and ESG are more friends than enemies, maybe frenemies.
Well, yeah, this is a delicate subject. This word ESG, I've discovered, it has a symbolic function and political meaning, and a lot of states are passing anti-ESG laws that don't allow their pensions to look at ESG factors and so on. I think that it's going to be mandatory that public mining companies report their scope 1, 2, 3 emissions, right? Whether we like it or not, it's just going to be part of the job. It's coming down the pike. And so miners need to be thinking about it and planning for it. And you can talk to Chester here about how you may want to do that. I think we have a really great story to tell. We have to tell it on our own terms. Bitcoin's superpower really is its flexibility and the contributions that come from being able to turn on and off quickly. And we need to find ways to translate that story into reports that people will understand and recognize, and that's not an easy job, right? And the same goes for the other things that we do, capturing methane, reusing waste heat. Bitcoin miners contribute to sustainability, to the E side of the ESG in a lot of different ways. That's kind of like one of those things that we'll look back on in 4 years. We will have very sophisticated ways of translating what we do for the grid and for the environment that we don't have now. So if you're looking for a market to get into or something to do with your time, that's an excellent project to work on. There's going to be huge demand for it, and it's going to require a lot of ingenuity and skill.
I just want to offer some framing, which is that I think the reason that ESG ends up being this sort of third rail thing is because on the one hand, it's a very reasonable set of objectives to stand behind, but on the other hand, it gets used as a cudgel to pick winners and losers, choose outcomes. Look, SBF had one of the highest ESG ratings ever. So, we've seen sort of the misuse of the characterizations, the quantity, or the qualitative and quantitative metrics that get associated with it. And so when we talk about like reporting regulations, that's one thing. But when we talk about sort of the political implementation of these types of metrics and values, like that's another thing.
Well, it's a scam and it's a tool of control. And don't hate me, please. I'm not an advocate for ESG in any particular form. I do think that we do have a story to tell. There are investors who want to know that story, who care, and it will invest differentially depending on how you run your business. Some of it's just about being good neighbors, just about being good neighbors in a broader sense.
Hey guys, I had a quick question. So do you have any concern about mining in the future in the US reaching a point where the state may ask you to censor certain transactions, or there may be laws that pass that attack Bitcoin mining? And the reason I bring this up is because you had mentioned how what mining, there wasn't really much to mining before 2019. I think you specifically meant the U.S., right? Because China was massive. I mean, that's where all the mining was.
That's a great point.
Right. So, and I know you know that, right? Like, but and obviously what happened there, was banned. And so my question is the censoring of transactions, like how do you are you concerned miners will be willing to go along, and or are they like mobile enough that they would leave the area? I don't. I mean, it's kind of hypothetical, but it has happened in a sense in China.
Yeah, I think just to think about it at a higher level, just briefly, like the great thing right now is that the miners aren't particularly involved in constructing block templates that include transactions. We get fed those by automation and optimization software tools outside of our house. And so we're a service provider selling compute, and we don't have any role to play today in individual transaction inclusion. That could change in a world where Stratum v2 gets rolled out, which is also a positive thing for the space, I think. But you're asking a deep and nuanced question that I think is philosophical in asking, but is technical in answering. And so I think, the levers of control and the means by which to avoid those levers of control haven't particularly been built yet.
That's a great answer. I'm going to give you a shallower answer. But I've seen in the past few weeks Carol House speak on a couple of occasions and had conversations with her. And she's the former head of cybersecurity for the National Security Council and has held numerous positions in the White House. And she was very clear, and this is not like her opinion. I think she's the most Bitcoin-friendly person we had in the White House. But she was just very clear that wow, is that a bat? Wow, amazing. We have a bat in here. Spook. But she was very clear that there are a number of options that they have on the table for making sure that money is not used improperly from their perspective. And they want to take sort of the most egregious case, like someone buying weapons of mass destruction or something from North Korea. And then they're going to say, hey guys, can you just not process this transaction? And what they would like is for us. I'm going to quote her. This is from the Princeton conference. She said, "What we need is for all of you to get the relevant people in a room and make this decision for yourselves, so we don't have to make it for you." And I was like, my panel was next, and the panel title was a question. It was like, if Bitcoin is the answer, to what question is it the answer? Or if Bitcoin is the answer, what is the question? And I was like, the question is, can you invent a kind of money for which there is no room, that you can get all the relevant players in and do the thing that the White House wants us to do? That's what Bitcoin is. It's a technology that doesn't have that room, right?
Take it up with the CEO.
Take it up with the CEO, right? There is no room. There is no room. And what's amazing was that they think only in those terms. And for every other kind of protocol that was represented in that room, some of the people were in fact in that room. Like Joe Lubin was there sitting in the front. So you can round up the relevant people, but you can't for Bitcoin. So I think we're on a collision course. And maybe it'll be settled politically, maybe it'll settle, in elections, maybe it'll be settled legally. They know how extreme this is. And it's the idea, it's not just like censoring blocks from a transaction, but censoring you from mining on top of a chain that has it somewhere deeper, right? Because if it's just censoring, it'll get in from miners elsewhere. But if they say you can't mine on top of a chain that has this transaction in it, then it's effectively saying you can't mine Bitcoin in the US. That's a disaster scenario. It's kind of on the calendar for me, kind of in the way that the Department of Defense has the war with China on the calendar. It's like it's on the calendar. I don't know when, but maybe it's like 2030 or something. They're just going to do that. And I think we have to prepare for it politically, legally, and technically.
Okay, we've got time for one more question. And let's keep it quick.
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask, since I'm really interested in this idea that Bitcoin can reveal what energy sources are actually good and actually optimal, but I fear that will be distorted by things like subsidies and over-regulations on things. And any government can make any energy source look good to Bitcoin miners and have them all use the worst energy source possible just by taxing and subsidizing.
It's already happening. It's happening all over the place. Bitcoin. Sorry, I'm just jumping right into this.
Let's keep it quick as well.
Yeah,
Bitcoin is a black hole. One of the things it sucks in is subsidies. If you subsidize energy and make it artificially cheap, whether it's coal in Kazakhstan or in Kentucky, Bitcoin miners will come and absorb it. And yes, we're not completely outside the system. That's a really good concern. It absolutely does happen. I just think those subsidies are not sustainable, and Bitcoin will destroy the subsidies over time and replace it with a natural one.
Yeah. All right. A big thanks to Harry. Big thanks to Troy.